We are live this
That's
evening.
right.
So we're going to see if we can get Joe Rosas on and
Mhm,
Johnny Green.
mhm.
Yeah, I think Johnny, what did he ink? War Machine over Fred Haynes. Like War Machine. What issue did he tell me to look up? War Machine, like 26. If you look him up on IMDb, you can find his, it's green with three E's, not all in a row. uh, but he's got about 20. Yeah, you know what it was? He and
Okay,
Fred
here it
Haynes
is.
was there for a while too. He and Fred started getting work like Fred penciling and Johnny inking right around when Marvel was going in bankruptcy. And that just put an end to the careers of a lot of Marvel because besides all the people who in the office who were fired, there was
Mhm.
fewer comics. So I don't think
There he
Fred
is.
ever I don't think Fred
Uh,
ever drew anything for Marvel again, really.
yeah, War Machine number 18, September 1995. There and 21. This is a cover.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that was a Jim Calafiore issue, his first one. Then he started working with Fred Haynes.
yeah. It's mentioned here as inking a couple of Calafiore covers.
Right.
Then he did inking over Haynes. Yeah, there's an issue. Yeah, art by Fred Haynes and Yancy Labatt. But
Oh, yeah, it's
Labatt's part was inked by somebody else called Ray Garcia.
okay. Yeah,
Okay.
Yancey's been doing he was one of Romita's Raiders.
Hmm.
And he's been doing those superhero girls for DC. I don't know if you ever noticed any of those.
Hmm.
They're I don't know, they're about he's been doing a bunch of them for about 10 years. I think originally Marie Javins hired him on that because I think that may have been one of her books. But it's those sort of manga size original, uh, aimed at young girls. So they're not they weren't comic shop things. They were young adult things. I think they're called the superhero girls. And it was like
Hmm.
Supergirl, Batgirl, I don't know, Harley Quinn girl. That's what Yancey did for a while.
And here it is. His work appearing, uh, Johnny Green's work appearing in French.
Oh, that's right. I did see that. There were two issues that were. I was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's French."
Yeah. By this time, the comics were a U.S. size, and they were color.
Ah,
Uh, so this is late '90s. Because when Marvel went bankrupt, most publishers outside North America either lost the rights or had to renegotiate the publishing rights, and that's how
ah,
a lot of stuff ended up at Panini. So the Semic used to be Lug. Lug was the long-standing Marvel publisher in France. And the Scandinavian publishing group Semic had purchased them, so the Luke brand disappeared. It was all Semic. But in late '90s, so the Marvel goes bankrupt in '97. All the contracts are null and void, and
ah.
Panini takes over from Semic in France, and Semic has to go on with Top Cow and Wildstorm only.
Oh, okay. How are you tonight, Wilson?
I'm doing all right. I had just finished up dinner, and then I wanted to jump on here, and
I
here I
was
am.
just explaining to Paolo who Johnny Green was
Oh, okay.
because I've been hearing from him on my walks in New York video, and
Right.
I think he wants to appear on the show. I don't know. He doesn't know this show really exists because, like
Mhm.
as I was just saying to Paolo, the when you go to someone's YouTube channel, it's the lives aren't on the videos list.
Right.
So it's like the he's been watching some of my walks in New York videos, some of my other videos, and commenting on them. And I think we were talking about, I was mentioning Joe Rosas was on our show on my Thursday video. And he's like, oh, you have a show? I'll come on sometime. I was like, all right. That's like, you colored some of Fred and Johnny's stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Plenty of stuff they've worked on. I still do. You know, Fred's been doing a couple of projects. I'm not sure when they get released, but I think some of our children's
he hasn't
books.
been doing his web strip in a while.
Oh, he hasn't. I didn't. Well, I don't follow
because
the strip. So
yeah, I think he ended it. Either I don't know if he ended it or got interrupted. I think it was last year he stopped. It's The Hero of Rockaway,
right.
And it was like a weekly web comic he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I haven't seen it in a little while. Hey, 62 Lefty Blues.
Hello.
It's Happy Cold Friday.
Yeah, it's real. Actually, it's not cold at all. They said we were gonna have a cold spell. We had it for a couple of days, but now we have temperatures in like the mid 50s.
Yeah,
it's raining occasionally.
It's been quite cold. I'm actually quite comfortable in my apartment. As you can see, the windows actually open. They are giving us so much heat. And again, it's an old New York thing that you have to have so much heat given to you through the steam that you have to have your windows open. This goes back to an old law that happens to be that they thought stale air could kill you. So if the windows are closed, that's too dangerous. So by law, New York has to give you so much heat that you need to have your windows open.
Yeah.
So the older buildings like mine is an old building. It still has that type of thing.
Yeah.
But usually they don't give us as much heat as they've been giving us this year. For the last 20 years that I've lived in this apartment building, this is the warmest it's ever been. And it's like, I'm guessing some of the people must have complained in the past enough that when I got home from the comic shop today, it was like, it is stifling in here. I need to open up some windows.
62 Lefty Blue says 32 here and finally stopped snowing. Eric P says we have cold and snow here in Michigan. We've just had cold. Yeah. Matter of fact, I go on my bike rides usually around 9 in the morning. As long as it's above 20 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm okay. I just dress warm or whatever. But it's been so windy here that I haven't been able to get out. Like I went out Wednesday in the wind and because the wind will move you when you're on a bike. That is not good. It's like you're riding on your bike and all of a sudden you're 6 inches to the right. You're like, oh, that didn't feel good. So it was Wednesday morning. I stayed in and did the stationary bike. And today I stayed in and did the station because it was just too windy out there to be on a bike. Matter of fact, as I was cycling on Tuesday, there was an old gray-haired dude in a battered old pickup who drove by me and just looked at me and shook his head. Yeah, so hopefully we can get Johnny on here sometime. That'll be fun. I haven't talked to him in ages.
Yeah, I mean, I speak to him like on the internet in the sense of an email back and forth. That's about it. There hasn't been.
He's not even on social media.
No, he's not. There's just the occasional email.
Yeah. Let's see. Tit Goblin. It's hardly winter here at all. Just rainy. Aha. Up there in Canada. St. John's, is that where Tit Goblin is again? Because I was just talking to, I got a video call from GPAP, Sean, the old YouTuber. I haven't heard from in a while. He's up in St. John's and what is that, Newfoundland? So God, it was nice to be able to chat with him after a while. He used to have, like, I don't even know how long ago it was now, 5-6 years ago. He used to have these weekend long hangouts where everybody, all the YouTube comic people would just stop in for a couple hours and talk. Off air. Not on air ones. Did you make it to the comic shop this week, Wilson?
As a matter of fact, I did. I made it there today. I've had at least 2 weeks worth of books waiting for me, as well as books that during Midtown's holiday sale, I picked up a bunch of stuff and then grabbed some stuff off the rack. So
that's right. You ordered them through the website, the sale stuff, right?
Yes, and then had them delivered right to the store because they have it set up that way.
Why not? It's easy enough. You're going there anyway.
Exactly. And then with a push of a button, it all got charged to the regular account for my weekly hauls. And it turns out it's like, whoop, money went through, and then don't get really a confirmation email. Well, that was a little buggy to me, but all in all, I think I got quite a few books, no in particular order. So I'm going to grab the first one that I got off the shelf to
show us one.
A Christia Russo.
Oh, there we hold on. I got that one too.
Magneto.
Chris, who won't be showing up tonight and who doesn't find the movie Animal House funny.
Really?
Huh. Yes. So we were discussing.
I've never seen Animal House.
Zero.
I've never seen Animal House.
It's a classic.
It was quite entertaining when I watched it as a kid.
One of those movies we've been quoting for years and years. Eric P. got one of those as well. Mm-hmm. The story wasn't too bad. I mean, they're wrapping. Have you been reading any of this story?
I have not. I have not, 'cause I don't think I have all the Christia Russo cover books.
Okay.
I have the one before it, and I think I have 2 after. So I think I have the first one. I'm missing the second. I have the third, and then here's the fourth. So I need to track down.
It's 2 uncanny X-Men's and 2 adjectiveless X-Men's. Mm-hmm. And the story actually goes through all 4. And right. It's X-Men fighting their jailers, who are the X Mansion is now a jail for mutants that some lady is running, and for some reason the Louisiana X-Men and the Alaska X-Men don't like each other and fight. I don't quite understand that, but the story itself was okay.
So it's like they mixed the daytime soap opera with the CSI franchise.
There you go. And freaking the ads that just interrupt the story drive me crazy. It's like, why do you do that? Because reading indie books, any house ads are in the back. But Marvel and DC still to this day, even though they're all freaking house ads, stick them in the middle of the story, and I don't know why.
Right, if they're all house ads, they don't really need to do that.
Yeah,
they do not. I am liking the 90s designs for the indicia here.
Oh, okay.
And the little wrap up that is very 90s colors and design aspect to it.
Oh yeah.
The house ad, One World Under Doom. Okay, so they're bringing back another crossover event. What is weird, but I'm liking it. So this double page spread for this house ad. I'm liking the individual artwork because they're even though they're probably artwork for the covers, the design wise is very long. So it has a nice little poster look to it.
Oh yeah, it's got a banner look to it.
Yeah, I'm liking that.
As it goes up and down.
Design wise, I like it. Not the placement of it, but the design wise, I'm liking it. I could only imagine the placements for the house ads might just be one of those things that are designed into the book and is stuck on the pages because they're going to, they could easily swap out a house ad for an ad that got paid for.
Yeah.
Although I see no
I see no evidence of an ad that was paid for.
I see absolutely no evidence for. Maybe the back cover is an ad that's paid for by that company that's doing it for them.
Who knows?
Oh, and there's a tribute here to Greg Hildebrandt, who passed
That's
away
nice.
earlier this year, or late last year.
Yeah, Marvel's doing the tribute to artists bit they've been doing that for the last couple of years, and it feels kind of fake. And they also do it on the books like 6 months after the creator died. So
Greg Hildebrandt's one that surprised me a little bit too.
Yeah, because he was.
I don't really associate Greg Hildebrandt with Marvel that much.
The cards, maybe.
It was the cards. Yeah. It was the cards and a whole bunch of covers during the time we were at Marvel. So it was like quite.
Right. So
we're going through.
Right. So nobody at Marvel actually remembers Greg Hildebrandt. So why would they do it?
Yeah, that's what I found. Like, who was the last one they did it for? John Cassidy. I can understand that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to me, John Cassidy. It must be all the Greg was an artist you only see once in a generation. Oh, this is Dan Buckley. Hey, maybe Dan Buckley was particularly liked him. Someone who would paint a masterpiece and transport you. Yeah, immense talent and imagine. General stuff.
And he was
Dan
doing
Buckley, president of Marvel Comics and franchise, and Dan was there in the 90s.
Yeah. So I could see it. He still was, I think, synonymous with comics in general because he was still doing covers, not necessarily for Marvel, but for other companies as well.
And they did it for Don Perlin, which is less weird if you think that.
Yeah.
If you remember that they've reprinted a lot of stuff that Perlin drew in the 70s and 80s.
And Perlin was an art director there too for a few years.
But the current crop who might not have heard of Don Perlin would become aware from all of the essentials and the epic collections where Perlin's work was reprinted. So they would know who he was when he died.
I am happy that they do these tributes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we've come up in a time where Marvel mostly ignored their artists.
They wouldn't mention Jack Kirby for like 25 years.
Yeah. So there's at least they're being acknowledged.
Right. Oh, let me show you one thing I finally got. That's ended up being way too expensive. Massive Verse card game.
Oh, okay.
And if you remember, this is the one that I kind of got on Kickstarter as a lark. Because Massive Verse is Radiant Black and Rogue Sun and a few other people who are in this Massive Verse. And I love cards. I don't know if I'll ever actually play the game because I always played games at lunchtime at Marvel, but none of those people are around me, so I don't play many games besides the occasional video game. But I think originally in Kickstarter, this was probably $25. Then I added on an expansion and an extra pack. I think it ended up costing around $35, which is a little expensive. I was like, "Ooh, that's a little expensive." And then 2 months later, they hit me with a $20 shipping and handling fee for this box. And I was just like, come on. And now the expansion pack I got, which was probably an extra $10 amongst that original 30 for $10, $12, got damaged. They have to have it reprinted in China, and they should be getting it to me sometime in spring 2025. I was just like, all right.
What if you were in the middle of a game?
and then I saw this was offered through previews for like $20. I was like, oh, right.
That's just.
But it's got a couple of these. I guess these are game pieces, counters. This is a little annoying too, the box design that puts this stuff on top of the cards. This and it's like you have to remove those to get to the cards. And that just kind of annoys me. I wish they were like stuck in here somehow so that the cards were on top. But anyway, I of course, and then I had to make these white boxes myself.
Really?
Because I'm a maniac. Because it's like, matter of fact, I didn't even open these all the way. There's the first set, about 30 cards in there. And there's 2 different decks, which I think are supposed to fight each other. But if you open them up and just throw them back in there, the 2 decks that are supposed to fight each other get all mixed together. So that's why I actually have an Illustrator file for making boxes for cards, which I print out and then just, cut them out with an X-Acto and a straight edge and use some tape to keep them together.
Right.
So, and I just have to vary the width of the box. Otherwise, it all fits right together. So I made a couple of boxes for them. Oh, there's also I'm not sure what these cards are. They must have something to do with the game because these are not playing cards. I think these are cards like you put down to set certain conditions, I'm sure. Or if maybe Radiant Black is the main hero you're using, so you set that card down. But it was fun to see. And it comes with little rivets, I guess, to somehow attach to these counters together. But I don't even know if I need counters. I usually use dice as counters. So. But it was fun to finally receive, at least part of this.
Yeah.
Because it ended up costing way more money than I wanted to spend. And like I said, you can order this now from your local comic or game shop for $20. Of course, you won't get the expansion, but neither did I. Master Living Rulebook. Oh, I guess you get them. Oh, I think I opened, and this is just, this one I did open. Here's my little thin one. This is just like an extra pack. I forget what. This isn't the game expansion pack. Oh, there's the game studio. This is just an expansion pack of like 12 cards. The Syndicate. Oh, these cards really feel nice too. They've got a silky smooth texture to them. Sheer drone disruption. Shift, breach, Doppler, regroup. So, a nice little extra pack of cards. This probably cost me $5. But they really have I like the finish on these cards.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very smooth. But that finally came. And now I've got, an expansion to look forward to sometime in spring 2025. Oh, and speaking of expansion to look forward to, I don't know, Wilson especially, on social media, there's been an ad for Copic markers giving away a marker. Well, it'll cost you $1.08 here in New York. They're just like Copic all of a sudden showed up in my Instagram and my Facebook feed having a promotion where they will send you a random Copic sketch marker for $1. I was like, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah, I like the Copic markers.
Yeah.
I enjoy them. So
Not
random and okay, who knows what color you're gonna get.
And it costs $6, $7, $8.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. And though it was funny on it, they're like, one offer per email address per household. And it's like any attempt to get around this might result in you not getting any markers. They know. People are going to be like, let's see how many they'll send me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy in that, like I said, an ad in Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, and you click on it, and it asks you how many markers you want. So you can enter 25 markers in there. And it's like, why do you let the number get bigger than 1 if you will only send 1 per household per email address?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why isn't it even an option to send myself 100 markers? You tell me down here that any attempt to get around this, might result in no markers being sent to me, but right here, I can pick 20.
Right.
So I was like, I don't know who wrote their code, but it was a little weird.
Probably someone who wasn't being paid all that much and decided, well, here's what you have, because the executives that make.
Let me just put the standard how many do you want thing in here, and that's what it was.
I bet it was whoever made the decision to not only pay that artist, pay the person to code, probably paid crap, and then they didn't pay attention to what they're paying for.
I was like, should I put 10 in here? What happens if I do? I'm like, I know what's going to happen. They're not going to send me 10 markers for $1 a piece. I know whatever happens, that's not going to be it.
Right. But did they change the price if you put that number?
I didn't get that far.
Okay.
Because you have to put the number in and then hit checkout.
Right.
I should try that out next time just to see what it is. Maybe it'll charge $8 for the other one.
Yeah, because if it charges you $8, they have to send those 8.
No, I mean $8 per marker.
No, it's $1 per marker.
I know, but if you put in 10 markers, it might total it up as $91 or whatever. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
I didn't test that out, but I was just
if I see it across my feed, I'll go for 2.
See what happens.
Yep.
Worst that happens is you have to pay full retail price for 1 marker.
Right. But I would need markers because like I mentioned, I did order some stuff from the store itself, from the website. So I don't recall the prices I paid for these. They weren't covered prices, but I got some of the blank.
They were lower, right? Did you say?
They were lower. They were at least,
yeah.
I think half the regular price. It was the only reason why I even attempt to get a bunch. So I ordered a few that were the blank covers. So that one was Transformers. This one, don't know. Green Lantern, that's all in green. Which I think this is a reprint of the first Green Lantern book.
Oh, Eric P says, I just ordered one, total cost of $1.06. Yeah, 6 cents isn't that. Yeah, I think mine was $1.08 here in New York.
The first appearance of, I guess, Guy Gardner.
Oh, cool.
So I do like that with the sketch covers. They give you the regular cover in the book as well. I do like that. I didn't check that for the Transformers one. But, yeah. Well, the Transformers one does give you the cover. So I like that. I like that as just part of it. I mean, granted, I should just really do what Chris does and puts his own paper on the covers.
Yeah.
And call it a day. Because I especially have a whole bunch of books sitting around doing absolutely nothing. I could just toss a cover on. But it is just Bristol, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does Chris staples his?
No, you pull the staples out.
Right.
And then put them back in.
Oh, okay.
So what I usually do is first thing, I think Chris likes to, I think he does the opposite of me. I measure a piece of Bristol. I have like templates in Photoshop that I've set up already for what I do. So, and I'll print out the template draw right on the Bristol, and then I'll cut it. Usually what I do is I think Chris doesn't like to cut it until it's on the comic. I cut mine before it's on the comic.
Okay.
And what I do is, I take the comic, I get my pliers, I bend the staples, I pull them out, and then when I'm ready to put them back, I take like the original cover and I line it up with my cover and put little pencil marks in the staple holes so that I'm marking my cover where the staples go. Then I just get a push pin and make those holes in my Bristol cover, and then I just put the staples back in and bend them back over.
Okay.
So it actually is a little more time consuming than you want it to be. Making sure it's cut to the right size and the staples go back in, but it's easily doable.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I think Chris usually puts the paper on and then trims it to size and then draws on it. I like to draw on the paper flat and then trim it and put it on.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Though I did just see this guy today, or not today, sometime this week. I don't know if he wanted to draw a sketch cover a week, or he said buy a get. I don't know if he was a guy buying sketch covers or drawing sketch covers. I think he was drawing sketch covers and he wanted to get one done a week. That might got me to thinking, what if I were to buy a sketch cover, just a blank one a week for a year?
Right.
Would I ever work on them?
A buddy of mine, Dave Ryan, he does a lot of sketch covers, and he's done sketch cards, and all around artist. He's mostly penciling, but he's a painter as well.
Okay.
And he does sketch covers, but he tends to just, when he sees them, he orders them in bulk.
Okay.
And I remember he once showed his short boxes that were just filled with blank covers that he said, I'll get to these eventually.
Yeah.
But I think he's also one that will just take out a cover and just draw on it, not necessarily match the characters he's drawing to the cover.
But would he pick a comic to buy in? But like, Wolverine 50, would that be the one he buys in bulk?
I think he buy in bulk on whatever's on sale. Because sometimes you got some books that don't move, and those covers are around. So I think he has it's been a while since I spoke to him about this, but I think his local comic shop orders a bunch of them. And then he goes in and it's like, what do you got in bulk that's not moving? And then buys.
I'll buy it for cost.
Basically, because it's the way to do it.
I'll have to ask my comic shop because they do that for me. They'd be like, here, cover my cost and it's yours. I know they do that.
Mm-hmm. and like I said, because Midtown was having the sale, was the reason why I grabbed a bunch.
If you remember this cover that I showed a few weeks ago, Betty number 8.
Right.
My comic shop actually got in undamaged copies because this one I got maybe a month ago it was, but all of the copies had a ding up in the corner here. And he's like, you want a damaged one? I'm like, well, sure, I'll take one. I'll take a damaged one until you get a new one in and I'll swap you for it. He's like, okay. Right. It's like, because I was like, and I took the least damaged one I could find. I was like, because I don't necessarily trust that the distributor will get you undamaged copies.
Right, exactly.
But the distributor did. So this week I brought my copy in and got a nice undamaged copy. So
nice.
This will go in the Archie facsimile collection, all undamaged and everything. The boobs and butt Betty cover.
It's never been clearer underwater than it had on that. Speaking of facsimiles, grab this off the shelf. I wasn't expecting it, but issue 1 of Fantastic Four.
Oh, I think that was one I saw and was like, do I have that?
I know I have.
I think I do.
somewhere, but I do not have a facsimile. I do not have an individual.
I think I've got let me check my
Fantastic Four number 1. The first Marvel comic, supposedly, yet there's nothing inside it that says Marvel.
I might not have that number 1 facsimile. Yeah, maybe I'll get it somewhere. They'll probably still have one on the shelf. Because we're getting to the point now where there's like second and third printings of those facsimile editions.
Right.
I'm like, which one do I have? Which one do I not have? How much was that one?
This was $4.99. And look, we could test our talent.
Ooh, Random Reads has something interesting here. They'll be doing issues 2, 3, and 4, and I think up to 12 through the year for Fantastic Four facsimiles. All available in foil, too. Cool. I just wish they could get that foil better, because the foil I've been using is terrible and curls. Does it?
Yeah, I haven't even touched those.
Eric P. says, I love the back cover. That kind of looks like Jack Kirby is on it. That one always reminds everyone of Abe Vigoda.
Yeah.
Who is that again? That's a famous illustrator. I can't remember his name.
Albert Doran? Probably the greatest money maker in the history of commercial art. At the height of his career, he began a full-time search for people who like to draw. Albert, I think it's Doran. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't read it too well.
Dore? D-O-R-E? Was that him?
I think so.
Yeah.
D-O-R. It looks like it says D-O-R-N-E.
Oh, Dornay? Okay. Yeah, I know that name. Yeah, skip the foils too, says Random Read. Yeah. Albert. He's a famous. That's the one that what's his name? The guy before Vargas, who I have that book, bought that book on. The illustrator from the 30s. Where's his book? Hold on.
Right, the one you were talking about last week.
He was one of the guys who invented pinup art in the 30s, and he lost his shirt in the famous artist school. Because first all the famous artists of that age got together and formed that school. But then eventually, a few years later, it was unknown illustrators who were running who were basically grading all the stuff and whatever. And it became quite a scandal. And they all the famous illustrators had shares in the famous artist school. And oh God, I think it's right over here. Hold on. What's it?
Look at this coloring. You get it done in a day.
Crap, it's not right over there. It's on my I have a set of cards by the guy too. But anyway, he was told his buddy, who was a famous illustrator, told him everything will be cool. Don't sell your stock. Meanwhile, his buddy went and sold his stock. So by the time the scandal was over, the stock was worthless. And let's see, where is books? Where is my library? Petty. George Petty. He was the one. He was the one who helped invent the pinup art and lost all his money in that famous artist school. Because he was a rich guy too. Because illustrators made bank those days. But yeah, his I forget which famous illustrator was his buddy. He was like, no, and he was his best friend for like 30 years. Was not his best friend after that. After telling him to hold on to his stock, I'm not selling mine, and then sold his.
Wow. It's just
crazy.
Complete crazy. So it's cool because I saw it and it was like, I don't need it. If I want to read the story, but again, it is cool to buy Fantastic Four #1 off the rack and go, hey, this would be a pretty cool read. Plus, get to see some beautiful artwork. As a colorist, I love how simple that these colors are. And, again, just indication of stuff. You don't need
and how well it works.
Yeah. The storytelling in the coloring, so very little backgrounds. And I like that the early Marvel stories were really 2 stories in one. So they were like, 12 pages each, if even. And
they now think because they were like that because they weren't supposed to be in individual issues.
Uh-huh.
That may have been stories originally intended for like the monster comics or something.
Right. And the old ads. Well, these are a lot of fun. We're in radio, television, electronics. Now it being learn how to talk on YouTube.
like Spider-Man #1 was 2 separate stories, right?
Yes, the first story was the Fantastic Four, and I think the second story was with the Chameleon.
Yeah,
Chameleon.
So the first and second, the first stories on the first and second issues were still made for Amazing Fantasy because they have 14 pages.
Right.
That's why the second stories only have 11.
Right. That's what they think, which is also why some people think that the first couple of stories in Amazing Spider-Man were plotted by Jack Kirby, left over from his original kind of pitch. And the Ditko plots didn't start till issue 2 or something like that. So the weird stuff going on with those split things.
Yeah, the Tinkerer story kind of reads like a Ditko story.
Yeah,
with the type of aliens are their motivation is the Ditko.
Mm-hmm. So I found that
at the time they didn't know the aliens were fake.
Right.
Because remember, the Tinkerer took over almost over a decade to come back, and then they also revealed that Mysterio was one of the aliens from issue number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go back to those issues with that in mind to see if it does seem different.
Yeah.
Is Kirby's hand in there at all? Interesting.
And not in the drawing, in the plotting.
No, but
right.
I mean, yeah.
Well, from Amazing Fantasy number 15, we know that it is because it's very similar to other things that Kirby had worked on at the time, that were published, like the first appearance of the Fly, plus the Silver Spider pitch, which is available online.
Mm-hmm. Here's an old interesting thing I got this week, which came pretty quickly too. I wasn't sure if it was going to get here in time for today, but because I ordered it off of eBay, but it turns out the shop was just over in New Jersey. I ordered it from. It's a Pep Comics, an Archie comic with a Great Gatsby reference, or should we say Great Hatsby? Archie, what do you like best about the 20s? The price of gas. So of course I got this. There's a date stamp up there too. So this came out in it was Shell 8/29, 1974. This came out. That's a nice old drawing. I didn't know this existed. I just happened to stumble onto it this week.
Right.
So I'm like, and this copy is sharp.
It is.
It's got, except for some yellowing in that white, doesn't look like it was ever opened. Those corners are sharp. There's not really a speck or it's like there. I saw one flaw in it in the like there was a line going through kind of the P, but it turns out that was must have just been in the photo because it's not on book. But it amazed me that how good a shape this is in, because I think it cost me as once again one of the cases where the shipping is as much as the book. When you're buying one comic, it's always like, because I think like the book was $5 and the shipping was $5 or somewhere around.
Right.
So I think it cost me like $10.60 total. Eric P, you're gonna do an homage cover based on that? I could. We'll have to see. It's going in my Gatsby collection. But you know what's interesting too? This came out in 1974. 50 years before, in 1924, The Great Gatsby novel came out. I think it was 24, maybe even 23. And now we're exactly 50 years away from this book. So this book is the same distance from now as it was from 1924. It's just like, whoa.
You need to do a comic book Great Gatsby cover and reverse the imaging. As Gatsby is going to see a play on Archie.
The Great Hatsby. And I think 74 is when the Robert Redford movie came out too. So that's probably why they did it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But a nice cover. I didn't look up who drew, but this is a really sharp copy. That's another thing about eBay.
Right, that's not in DeCarlo, right?
I don't think so.
No, it doesn't look like it.
It's nicely drawn, whoever it is. And that back there looks like a comic strip, an old comic strip that I can't think of the name to.
It just looks like a stylized Reggie to me.
Yeah, but there's, I think there was a comment.
There was something that was not bringing up father, but also had a flapper character.
Yeah,
I've seen it somewhere, maybe in one of Butch Geiss's posts on Instagram.
It's
but
very familiar. It's got a very familiar style to it. Just that one, and that of course, that looks like what's his name? Not the guy who played the great Ryan O'Neal. That looks like to me. That looks like a Bonnie and Clyde reference, sort of like a Ryan O'Neal and Bonnie and Clyde. More than it definitely doesn't look like. Definitely doesn't look like Redford to me. Oh, maybe it does a little bit. Now that I look at it twice, now that I said Redford, it looks a little more like Redford.
But yeah, for the hat, maybe.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of Flapper Fanny by Sylvia?
Could be. I don't really know what I'm thinking of is the problem.
She had a strip in 1938, and the illustrations were kind of based on herself.
Could just be Blondie too.
Could be Blondie, because before Dagwood became a regular on the strip, it was about the Blondie was still from a rich family,
right?
So it was sort of in the same style as Bringing Up Father.
But yet most of the copies I saw on, like, this cover is a 9 easily. It's got one weird printing drag line down in that white. I don't know if you can see it. That's a production error. And the white's actually a little yellow. But other than that, there's like not a mark on it. And most of these had, like, almost all of them were the same price. I looked at maybe a dozen online, Pep Comics $2.95, and nothing came close to being this good a shape. There was, crinkles and, they were just sold to kids, so there was marks everywhere. I don't think this one was ever opened.
The Grand Comics database as whoever indexed the comic put then DeCarlo on the cover, and while the figures, the design looks, the figure design looks like the DeCarlo, the body movement for the characters doesn't. So
yeah,
It looks like somebody's aping DiCarlo, but it isn't DiCarlo.
That Archie's got a real casual walk that he doesn't usually have. Now that you mentioned body movement, and that blonde woman behind him is also she's very fluid.
Yeah, because the faces are made to look like DiCarlo, or maybe he redrew the faces, which I imagine since they had to be on spec, in the Carlo was the main artist that I guess he would be art director at Archie. He could redraw the cover like Romita did at Marvel.
What is that faucet up there?
Faucet? What?
Yeah, it says faucet.
Yeah,
no,
the original says
for weld. Now that hold on, it doesn't. FAWCETT. That's faucet, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it looks strange. I wonder what that's doing up there. I don't remember ever seeing faucet on an Archie. Not that I've looked closely at Archie comics.
Mm-hmm.
Does this Betty have a faucet? No, that one's from the 90s.
Okay, so the main story is not the cover story. Which is the cover story? Or
25 cents.
Okay, there's no cover story. There's no story based on the.
No story that references the Great Hatsby at all, or the 20s.
Yeah, so the artist on the first story is called Bob Bowling, who I never heard of because I am not familiar with Archie artists.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's how much is following the Carlo style.
Boy, that's in nice shape. I scanned it in. I'll have to make a large printout of it, as I like to do with some of these fun covers. Like it, I was just tooling around eBay, and I think I was looking for like random illustrated versions of The Great Gatsby, and this popped up. So I was like, cool. I'll have to get that.
That weird faucet logo shows up on all the covers.
Yeah, that I'm doing searches, and it's like you could do a search for faucet Archie, and stuff comes up. So I don't know what the connection of Fawcett and Archie is. Maybe Fawcett distribute them for a short time.
They were long out of business by then, right?
They weren't out of business. They were away from the comics. They still published paperbacks, I think.
Maybe they distributed it.
Mm-hmm.
Weird, man.
Yeah, I don't think I have any Archies that old that I remember the Fawcett cover.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all.
Yeah,
but like I said, I don't have. Not like I got a ton of Archies,
right?
And they're all new ones that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Want to show us another comic, Wilson?
Yes. So I'm buying comics because of the silly covers. For no other reason, I picked up What If #1, and it is what if Mickey and his friends became the Fantastic Four. Now, most of these Disney covers have been basically just the covers.
Right.
This particular one is the actual story.
I did not see that one.
They had multiple covers. And I grabbed this thinking, oh, it's just a regular issue of What If, but it's like, oh, there's actually a story in there of using the Disney characters becoming the Fantastic Four members.
Of course, Pete is the mole man.
So for this,
oh, it's wrong. They're wearing the blue costumes. They did not wear the blue costumes in issue #1.
Uh-oh.
Well, if you also remember, they did not become the Fantastic Four. So I beg to differ. In this particular one, let's see if they show the first time using the costumes.
Well, look, we got a couple of people who.
So the costumes look like they go from the lighter blue.
Mm-hmm.
Eric P. says, I've really liked the Disney Marvel books I've gotten. And Random Reed says, I really like the story there, but the Minnie Mouse as Iron Man is the best story of the three so far. Donald as Wolvie was forgettable.
So it's what
if Mickey and friends became the Avengers? Huh. Goofy Hulk.
To me, this is ridiculous because I am used to seeing Disney characters as superheroes, but not in this context. They're super goof. Now, super goof did originate in American comics, but Duck Avenger did not. That's why he's not very popular in America.
Huh.
The Avenger is a the diabolic parody. He started in 1960 in Italy.
Huh.
But it's a superhero identity that I'm used to seeing, and of course, my favorite, Duck's cousin Fadry, who was not created by Karl Barks. That's why a lot of people don't think he's a real part of the Duck universe. But in Europe, Fadry is much more popular than Gladstone Gander, for example, because Gladstone just tries to steal Daisy, which is not much of a plot. There are very few stories where Gladstone's the main character because he's very unlikable. But Fadry usually, since he's like Donald's beatnik cousin, so he functions as a foil, makes it a very Abbott and Costello relationship. But there are stories where Fadry appears. There's no Mickey, there's no Donald, and in Brazil, they turned Fadry into a superhero called the Red Bat.
The Rat
Bat. The Red Bat. But because he's not rich, instead of living in a mansion, he lives in a trash can, like Oscar the Grouch. But he does that have a red phone line directly to Chief O'Hara.
Oh, let's say Missing Mars is here. Hello there. And got a new comic, #1, which I think came out 2 weeks ago. I don't know how this one slipped by me, but it's another Mad Cave comic, Long Cold Winter, by Stefano Cardacelli, who was the one who gave us our Pink Flamingos. And I've been buying. I really like his artwork. It's kind of this weird, fun. He's maximizing every bit of talent he's got on every page. And the story, I guess it's a post-apocalyptic story about not enough oxygen on Earth, and you have to wear these masks, and this guy is trying to get to a safe spot. I mean, the story's by Francesco Perillo. What do we got here? Francesca Perillo, writer. Stefano Cardacelli, artist. Lorenzo Scaramella, colorist. Buddy Bedouin, letterer. And this is just, like I said, it was 2 weeks ago I saw this on a list of like things that came out this week. And I've been buying any Stefano Cardacelli stuff I can. So I'm like, I don't know how this one slipped past me. So I had him reorder it for me. So I think it took 2 weeks to get in. So I think that issue 2 should be in 2 weeks. I think it's a 4-issue mini, Mad Cave, and I like his work a lot. So this is an automatic buy for me. There's #2's cover. Let me see. Give peace a chance. But a fun one, long cold. Like I'm just gonna buy anything Stefano Cardacelli does because I like his artwork. So far, he's only done stuff for Mad Cave, so I don't know. I don't know where since it seems like Francesca Perillo, Stefano Cardacelli, Lorenzo Scaramella. Does that sound like it could be made in Italy?
Everything about that sounds made in Italy.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's Italian and the rest of the North American comics world doesn't know who he is.
They seem to be part of a team, don't they? It's not the first time that you see a team of Italians doing something specifically for the American market. Like they show up with a fully made product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might just be a studio,
right?
Guys together, and it's like you get one, you get them all.
Yep, enjoyed their stuff. And here's Johnny,
hey,
who we were talking about at the beginning of the show. What's up, Apocalypse? Johnny's been using Apocalypse as his handle since before there was even the web, I think.
When the internet started.
Comic Crack is here too. But if you want to come onto the show and say hello, Johnny, come right on. We were going through some of your inking credits at the beginning of the show. Give peace a chance. But yeah, I'm glad to see some more Stefano Cardacelli. And the Italian gang, we assume.
Right.
30 years he's been using Apocalypse. Speaking of 30 years, I got to show you an art supply I got. After 35 years of having loose rolls of tape, I finally bought a tape dispenser. This is, of course, for the 3-inch core tape. And I've got my Scotch Magic tape, my Artist White tape, and my Scotch removable tape. I just got this week. For like 35 years, I'm like, I should really get a tape dispenser because usually these are just lying around loose. And I either rip them or cut them with scissors. Matter of fact, I have an official pair of tape scissors because they gum up all the time and I have to clean them. But finally, like $25. But finally, I was like, darn it. It little covers up the... Johnny says, send me a link. Let me send him a link. Mm-hmm. First, I've got to...
There's going to be a new Cardacelli series, also written by Francesca Perillo. Yeah, it starts in March. It's called Don't Run with Scissors.
Okay, I'll have to get that one too. Let me see. Where is our link?
It's on it. I'm seeing it on Cardacelli's Instagram. He also works for 2000 AD because there's some Warhammer 40K stuff here. I'm Audio Sushi.
All right, Johnny, I just sent a link to your email. Just click on it and you can show up. So they got enough. They must be. Is it for Mad Cave also?
Yeah. They seem to be doing most of the stuff through Mad Cave nowadays. Right.
So let's see. If you've got 4 issues of this, that means December, January, February, March. Does that one come out?
Did you ever buy Love Me, a Romance Story?
What one is that?
That came out last year. Love Me, a Romance Story.
Yes. I bought that one and showed it here. That one was the robot.
Right. The robot who drove cars. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a cover here that almost looks like it comes from what was the thing's name? I have to go roundabout way to.
Yes, like I said, I don't know how this one slipped by me. I look like I get the final order cutoff every week, and I look at all the Mad Cave books and see what they are, and usually, you know, a number 1 is there. I click on it to see who's doing it. So I don't know how that one slipped past me.
Yeah, hard boiled. It's this kind of the stuff that Love Me kind of reminds me of hard boiled.
Okay, yeah.
I say get onto the Mad Cave newsletter. Onto
There he is. Apocalypse Johnny, how are you doing?
Hey,
hello.
Look at you.
Good day,
Look at those toys. What a nice set.
You, of course, know Wilson. And this is Paulo.
Yeah.
Who, big comic book fan. He's from and lives in Portugal.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I remember Paulo.
Yeah.
You've seen him on the And how are you doing tonight, Johnny?
Good. Can't complain. Just getting off of work.
Okay. Haven't talked to Johnny in a lot of years.
Yeah.
In Florida, right?
Yeah, still in Florida.
Johnny worked with us in the Marvel bullpen. What was your first year there?
I don't even.
Early 90s, right? 90.
Definitely early 90s.
Like 92.
Yeah, I think I was still in college, so around 90, 91, 92.
And worked there till what, the early 2000s?
Yeah.
Before Ike erased him? Ike used to have this habit, or asshole Ike, as I'll call him. Around Christmas time, he used to like to find people to fire. He used to just go, and then he'd fire them at lunchtime and escort them out of the building. So we came back from lunch one day, and Johnny was just gone. And everybody was like, where's Johnny? What do you mean? Just escorted him out of the, and he was just gone. It was like, wow. That was nothing very fun when Ike would do stuff like that. Do you remember that, Wilson?
I actually never knew what happened to Johnny. He was there. I went into his office to ask him a question, and he's just gone. Everything is still in the office. So I figured, all right, he stepped out. And then he was just gone. And unfortunately, that was during a time where you walk in and you ask a question to someone else, hey, what happened to so-and-so? And they just kind of like, and then that's it. You get no information. It was like even asking for it could be a problem. And it was like, you know, I ran into that twice. You know, where's this person? And then I went to, I think it was the Marvel Knights office. I was looking for somebody there. And it was like, nope. And that was it. No, they got fired. No, that they're just not here anymore. And that's it. You can't ask about it. So it was just, towards the end, it wasn't a great time.
How was that from your end, Johnny? A surprise?
Yeah, very much so. But, it was time. It allowed me to do what I'm doing. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
It allowed him to move to Florida. Johnny also, when he first got to Marvel, had some real culture shock. Because Johnny, where you're from? Was it Far Rockaway?
Yeah.
Which is in Queens, right?
Yeah, it's in Queens.
Only like in the last 2 years did I realize it was in Queens.
Really?
I always thought it was in Brooklyn. Because if you look at a map, like Queens is mostly in the north on the island, on Long Island, and but it bends all the way down under Brooklyn, and Far Rockaway is under. I just always assumed it was in Brooklyn. It was funny. It was like 2 years ago. I was looking at a map going, Far Rockaway's in Queens? When did that happen? But anyway, Johnny comes from a neighborhood where you got to kind of be cool and keep things under control and not be too flamboyant. That's the kind of a neighborhood he comes from. And there was none of that at Marvel at that time. You got to Marvel and there was nothing but nuts running around that place. And Johnny was there with his friend Thomas, who you known Thomas since you were little, right?
Yeah, we grew up together.
Right, Johnny and Tom, and you were like 22 or something, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So the two of them were there together about the same time, and they were just like, I remember Johnny just kept going, I can't believe he said that. So there was a lot of culture shock going on in those days for Johnny and Thomas. I remember in their very beginning. But soon their nutty sides came out, especially Thomas.
Oh yeah.
So what are you doing these days?
Currently is running a design team. So
Okay.
basically the same thing been doing all my life. So
Yep. Yep. You reading any comics?
I haven't read a comic in so long. Yeah, but still inking is for myself.
What have you been inking? Stuff for Fred?
Sometimes or just stuff on my own. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I know Wilson has colored some of yours and Fred's stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went and checked to see if I had any of your artwork, any of your art in any comic, but I don't. The only War Machine stuff I have is from the Hands of the Mandarin trade paperback, and that was before you started doing inking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was telling these guys before too. I think that it was like you and Fred started doing work together just as Marvel went into bankruptcy and all the work went away.
Yeah,
it was like such a
window.
It was, what was that?
I was saying is that small window.
Yeah, it was like I don't think Fred ever did any penciling for Marvel again, did he?
I'm not sure.
And that was the story of a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah,
if you were breaking in during that time, you were out of luck.
Yeah. After War Machine, it was just a couple of little projects here. Covers. We try to pitch at least. I know I try to pitch at least 2 stories. There was a What If with the Falcon that we try to pitch, where it was like, if I remember correctly, yeah, with Fred, it was basically the story was going to be that someone was kidnapping superheroes and either cloning them or somehow stealing their powers and then replacing them with either it was an alien or I forget exactly, but superheroes were being replaced. And the first one they go after is the Falcon. They figured, he's just a flying superhero. There shouldn't be anything cool with him. But it was to make the Falcon really cool in this one series that it turned out, it didn't go all that far. It didn't go past the pitch stage. And look at it now. Falcon is Captain America. So it's like, you're a visionary 30 years ago. But it was to like involve S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, where character would be taken. But so I remember like pitching that type of story.
Pitching with Fred. I read. I was just telling him too. I liked Fred's webcomic he was doing. I think he just stopped doing it this year. The Hero of Rockaway.
Yeah, he was doing that for a while.
Yeah, that's some good. I enjoyed that. But I've been doing a webcomic for years too. It doesn't make you any money, but so. But I've got mine down to very simple how I kind of do it, so I can still get it out. You got some toys behind you. You might not be reading the comics, but you're collecting the toys.
Yeah, this is like all the old stuff I've had. Yeah, like some of this is some of the inking stuff that I've done.
Okay.
Frame it. On the other side is actual Iron Man and Spider-Man stuff that I inked. So.
Okay. That's cool. let me show you something else I got this week, because that's what we do on this show. Wilson and I at least show the comics we got this week. Here's one. Johnny's never heard this analogy of mine, so I'll tell it to him. I call it the Brooklyn Bridge effect, because when you're driving south on the FDR to go over the Brooklyn Bridge, you've got two choices. You can either, because you're supposed to get off in the right lane, which always backs up. So you can either be the sucker who gets in the right lane and sits for 15 minutes trying to cross the bridge, or you can be the asshole who goes in front and cuts everybody off. Those are your two choices when you're crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. There's no third choice when you feel good about yourself. And I use that analogy for comics where, and this is who I usually am, you're either the sucker who buys monthly comics and subsidizes the trades, or you can be the asshole who waits for the trades and goes, I'm going to buy the trade because it's cheaper. And it's cheaper because all those suckers bought the individual issues. And I'm usually willing to be the sucker because I like monthly comics. But those are your two choices. There's no choice where you feel good about yourself. And that comes into play here because I just picked up Somna, the hardcover edition. And this is one of these new distillery books, which is creator-owned stuff. And I had picked up, this was the first book. This is what they're putting out normally. This is like a graphic novel magazine size one. But this one is $9. And there was 3 issues of it. And you can just tell, though, that these are not really designed to be monthly comics. They're designed to be graphic novels. So it's like, I was like, what do I do? It's like, I don't want to pick up these, especially since, like, this one came out, this one I got on Amazon for $15. The cover price on it is $30, but of course you can get things cheaper once they've been out for a while. And this one I got on Amazon for $15. So it was like, I could be the sucker who spent $9 an issue on 3 issues, or I could be the asshole who waits for it to come down to 15 issues and gets the collected edition. So with these distillery books, I decided I'm going to be the asshole. Because I don't want to pay $9 an issue for something that clearly wasn't meant to be read in individual issues. So, and this is also by Becky Cloolan and Tula Lute, who are 2 of my favorite artists. They do a real good job. And this one, I don't know. I have seen a lot of distillery ads on Facebook. I don't know if you guys have or not. But I think this one is really aimed at women too. Because if you watch the ads on Facebook, it's the woman going, I'm reading the dirty comic in the library or something like that. So it's really, and it's very much sort of like a, what I imagine, because I've never read them, a sort of romance novel aimed at women is like, because it's got some nudity and sex in it. And it's like, this is Becky Cloonan stuff. She's got this graphic designy style that's really nice. She's an excellent storyteller. And then Tula Lute has this painted style where a lot of the like dream sequences are in, it's like Becky Cloonan's drawn a lot of the like real world stuff, and Tula Lute has drawn a lot of the sort of the dream world stuff. We should christen Johnny with a few Reed ripping slabs tonight. We will. We'll do that. That's one of the comic book games we play. We'll show it to you. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, since they're 2 of my favorite artists, I really liked it. But conceptually, I have a problem with it. In terms of the story is sort of a Salem witch trial story, in that it takes place in the past in what seems like a Salem witch trial time or any other witch trial time. And there's this woman is the star of our story, and her husband is the bailiff who's in charge of finding the witches. He doesn't really want to be in charge of finding the witches, but the sort of responsibility has kind of fallen to him. And at the beginning, they're burning a witch. And then the wife is having this real problem because something keeps coming to her in her dreams that she doesn't know if it's good or evil. So it's all about her repressed sexuality and her husband hunting witches. But it kind of makes a hero. I don't think it's trying to, but it kind of makes the hero of the people who were burning the witches, because there's clearly some sort of demon or devil bedeviling her, and she gets in trouble for being a witch. So it's kind of like, usually these days when we tell the story of the Salem witch trial, it's the people burning the witches who are the villains. We're like, you know what? They were just burning people. They weren't really witches. But in this, it's kind of like, well, maybe they were right. Maybe they really were witches and they should have been burned. And I found that weirdly uncomfortable. I'm like, you're making heroes out of the people who burned the witch? But they didn't really, but they kind of did just by the nature of the story. So I found that a little strange. Well, like I said, I don't know if that's sort of typical of a Harlequin romance type book. Let's see. 62 Lefty Blues said I'm the same way with Distillery. $9 in issues, and they take way too long to come out. Yeah. I'll wait for the graphic novel now and catch that on. So that's what I've decided to do too. I'm definitely the asshole when it comes to Distillery, because this is also how they were meant to be read. I think they're just putting them out like this, to make money. But they were really meant to be read like this. You can't even tell this came out in like 3 issues. There's like 4 or 5 chapters even too. So it doesn't even read like it's 3 chapters.
Yeah, I remember when Blaze put out the French Conans. So those things came out as graphic novels in France, and breaking them up into mini series makes no sense, because you're reading a continuing story, and the stories are broken up where they don't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Let's show Johnny what the game is we play here.
Okay.
Our Reed Rippin' Slab. First, it's kind of like F, Marry, Kill. You know how to play that one. But it's Reed Rippin' Slab. Show you 3 comic books. I try to get them all sort of at the same level of value and interest. And one, you get to read. One, you have graded and put in a slab. And one, you have to tear up. That's the game. What decade do we want? Wilson, pick a decade.
Well, with Johnny here, I say let's go with the 90s.
The 90s. All right. Let's see what I got for the 90s.
You'll have a connection with those books.
Let's see. You know what we're going to do? Johnny and I may have worked on some of these. We're going to go with 1992 August X books. Let me share my screen. Here we go. We have got Uncanny X-Men 293, X-Men 13, and X-Force 15.
Ah, yes. Yeah. I remember 2 of those covers.
That's a good one.
I have all 3 issues. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Definitely X-Men number 13 I'm reading. 293 Slaving, X-Force tearing up.
Actually, X-Men 13 isn't by Tim Truman. Did I label that wrong?
Yeah, you.
That must have been leftover from something else, because I don't think Tim Truman.
That is an Andy Kubert cover, but so is Uncanny, because Andy was drawing adjectiveless.
It must have been left over from whatever one I was doing before this. I'm like, there's no way that's Tim Truman.
That's a good.
And there's two other parts to this game that we've added on since. Since Paulo told us the story of which issue of Aquaman was it?
The French Aquaman #1.
French Aquaman #1, which in the original Aquaman cover, which I have here somewhere, had Aquaman holding Mira and his wife in his arms. But in the French comic code those days, you weren't allowed to show a man holding a woman like that. So in the French version, they replaced Mira with a dolphin. So on the cover of Aquaman #1, Aquaman is holding a dolphin in his arms crying, not his wife. So we pick one figure in the cover to replace with the dolphin. So that's called dolphining. And then the other thing we do, like the things we added up. Matter of fact, it was this guy right here, Stefano Cardicelli. He's the artist on this. In one of his series, as I was reading it, I was kind of baffled because the guys were escaping the world and there was nuclear explosions going off, and he just drew some pink flamingos. It was like there were just some pink flamingos in the panel, just kind of flying past, watching the explosion. So then we add pink flamingos into one cover in one spot. So see, what's Tit Goblin doing? He's going to read Uncanny, rip X-Men, slab X-Force, and Dolphin Deadpool. I bought all of those in real time on a pull list. And let's see. Whoops. He's going to read X-Men, slab X-Force, and rip Dolphin, Deadpool, and X-Force. Flamingos in the Kirby hand on the cover of Uncanny. The Kirby hand right there in the middle.
I'm going to read Actually, I've read all of these as well, but I'm going to read X-Force, rip Uncanny, because that's a Mikhail story. And Mikhail sucks as a character. He does.
Yeah.
And I'm going to slab X-Men because it's a pinup cover.
Yeah.
It's a multiple pinup cover. Even though Hazard also sucks as a villain, but
I have no memory of that X-Men 13. I know I bought it, so I have no memory of that story. So I'm going to read that story. I'm going to slab Uncanny. And I'm going to rip X-Force. And I'm going to dolphin the character that Colossus is holding. Because I think that would just be cool because he's holding a character. And the flamingos I'm going to put on that X-Men on the X-Men 13 cover because I think it needs more characters. I think the flamingos looking out as well works on that.
I'm going to dolphin one of Deadpool's swords
because they're too dangerous.
Yeah, remember this is Deadpool where he was still supposed to be just a flaming idiot. He was not supposed. He was never supposed to be funny, but so adding a dolphin to a pre-funny Deadpool is funny. And I'm going to put the flamingos on Colossus's armband because he's just watching him punch his brother.
Am I the only one who hasn't read any of these comics ever?
Well, yeah. I mean, you're a pseudo-intellectual who only reads indie comics, so.
I don't think I've read one of these.
Oh, you're missing out. I don't know what's worse, is that the fact that you got them for free and you didn't read them.
Didn't even bother taking them home. That's why when I think about what is that, like the first appearance of Deadpool, in X-Force, whatever issue it was. It's like I could have had plenty of copies of that, but I didn't even bother to bring any of them. It was like we just walked by them. Oh, whatever. First appearance of Cable, whatever. Just lying around the office. Couldn't even be bothered to bring one home. Could have had enough. Could have had tons of copies of them, but nah, couldn't be bothered.
And they had rookie cards in them too.
Yeah, no, and they were everywhere. It was like there was comics all over. But before Ike took over, there were comics everywhere. Let's see. So I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna slab X-Force 15 just because Deadpool's on the cover. Think I might be able to make some money off it, but probably can't.
No.
Yeah.
This is like Deadpool's 6th appearance.
At some point, people will get around to wanting his 6th appearance.
Yeah, that's what we're calling a quiet key.
Yes. Oh, a quiet key.
We're cutting a new term, yeah.
I just made that up. It's a quiet
key. Yeah. It's waiting around to be a key.
To be a key, yes.
Quietly waiting.
It has the potential to be a key. It's a quiet key.
All right, guys, I gotta go feed my dogs.
All righty.
I'll gotta jump back in later, but
okay.
Good seeing you guys. For sure.
Good seeing you. We'll have to catch you later. You can come on anytime.
Awesome.
All righty.
Okay, later.
It's good to see Johnny.
Yep.
I think I'm going to read Uncanny X-Men 293 because that looks like the most exciting cover to me.
It is a very exciting cover.
I want to read about Colossus punching that guy.
That's Mikhail's brother. They found him in a parallel universe. And look, this is when Scott Lobdell took over the writing, and it's very, very melodramatic.
Oh, is that a Scott Lobdell written one?
Oh, yeah.
I just changed my mind. I'm ripping that. Which means I'm going to have to read X-Men.
I think that one isn't written by Mark Waid by Fabian yet. It may be a Lobdell as well. I can't remember.
I'll have to take my chances that one's not Lobdell. And I'm going to switch Cyclops on that X-Men 13 with a dolphin.
Ah, okay.
And I'm going to put so there's going to be a dolphin with optic blasts leading the team.
Excellent.
Okay, it's already Fabian, and that's an Art T-Bear cover.
That's what I thought. It looked like art.
Yeah, I just must have not pasted in his name and the one from before it when I was making it got left.
Because Andy Kubert started drawing the next issue is Executioner's Song. So Andy Kubert started drawing. No, he had already started drawing by that time.
Here we go. Eric P says the dolphin that gets put on X-Force has to have his tail fin kicking Cable. I'm going to put the flamingos on Deadpool's back. So they're just going to have a front row seat to the fight as they're just standing on Deadpool's back there. Mm-hmm. Wow, August 1992. I could have pasted up some of those books. I have no idea.
Is that first? Is that the first Greg Capullo on X-Force?
I don't know.
Did he do X-Force first or oh God, Quasar?
X-Force. No, yeah. Wait a second, no.
Quasar came first, right? Quasar is the first time I noticed Capullo, but I don't know. That always makes me think it came first, but I'm not sure.
Maybe he was doing them at the same time. This is 1992, right? So
yeah.
Quasar
People weren't only doing one book in those days.
So yeah, he was doing Quasar before,
Okay.
and then there's the Galactic Storm crossover, and Rick Tyler does 2 issues. No, he does 3 issues. He continues to yeah. Capullo drew a bunch of covers. No, he came back. He was doing 2 comics at once. He was doing Quasar and X-Force at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is Capullo had done the cover for the previous X-Force, but this is for his first full issue.
There you go, Quiet Key.
The Quiet Key.
First
Look at that.
Capullo.
First Capullo on X-Force.
Quiet Key.
We got copyrighted and make T-shirts. So we have merch for the store, for the show.
First, I'm going to write it down so I don't forget it.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
But I'll forget it by tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The interior art on Uncanny X-Men is by Tom Rainey.
Okay.
All right.
But it was. Uncanny didn't have a regular penciler at the time.
What's the difference between the teams? I mean, it looks like we got Rogue, Wolverine, Cyclops.
So you had X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue.
Okay,
that's
so
right.
Their names were.
Yeah,
they just split them into 2.
Yeah, Uncanny was the gold team, and Objectiveless was the blue team. Uncanny had a team led by Storm. So it was her, Jean Grey, Iceman, Colossus, Archangel, and Bishop joins them.
Who is that overlapping the logo in X-Men 13?
It's the bad guy, Hazard.
Okay.
He's got nobody cares about
booty shorts on.
I think he was one of the Alkalites or something like that.
I don't think he ever is shown up since, or if he has, it was like he's usually a throwaway villain.
Mm-hmm.
And the Objectiveless team was led by Cyclops, so it was Wolverine, Psylocke, Beast, Gambit, and Rogue. And Jubilee was about to quit the team.
I'm out of here. Looks like Cyclops. I mean, Colossus didn't get anyone on his team. No one's helping him.
They're probably fighting the Morlocks. So when they brought Mikhail back from the parallel universe where he was, there was a bit of backstory that Colossus wanted to be a hero like his brother because he was a Russian cosmonaut during the Cold War, and in a mission the shuttle exploded before taking off, and Mikhail was considered to have died, but his powers allowed him to move to a parallel dimension because he has like Proteus type powers, and he's actually much more powerful than both Peter and Illyana combined. But he comes back to Earth and he decides to take over the Morlocks just like that.
I wonder who did the cover copy on those comics. Because in those days, they were done by the people in the bullpen, the letterers. Dave Sharp, Darren Auk, I think he was there in 92. John Babcock. But it looks like that Uncanny X-Men almost might be. I don't think Richard Starkings was around yet, but that's starting to look a little Starkings-esque on that cover copy.
Yeah,
but he copied a lot of previous styles.
Yeah. That could have been just at the beginning of Stalking, just because of the way, in the circle.
Yeah, that it looks like it, but I don't think he would have. That was too early for him to be doing cover copy.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so, because I don't think he was doing cover copy until like probably 94, I would guess. Because Marvel itself the bullpen started computerizing in '95, and I know Richard Starkings was doing computer lettering before Marvel was digitized, and we were pasting down printouts of computer lettering. But I don't think I think all the covers still had their cover copy done inside. It wasn't until later on that he was doing all the X books cover copy. But that circle one, that one does look sort of like the style he would use later on. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to have to interview the letterers those days and figure out what cover copy they did.
Yeah, so that's credited for the interior letterings. It's credited to Louis Bohas. I don't
even recognize that name.
Lois Bohalis. Is that how you pronounce it? Bohalis?
Yeah, I'm not wearing my glasses, so I thought it said Louis. Lois Bohals. Okay. Buhallis, or it might be one L.
I wonder if Joe Rosas was still coloring the X-Men then. Was he coloring? Who's the colorist on that?
Kevin Tinsley.
Okay, Stickman.
Yeah.
But Objectiveless might be his.
Yeah, Objectiveless might be Joe Rosas.
It is, and Marie Javins.
Ah, okay. Must have had to get done fast.
Probably.
The Marie and Joe are both them.
The penciler is Tom Rainey. The interior pencils. Yeah.
Good stuff. What hazardous territory? And only one will walk away. The glory days. I don't. Would you consider that the glory days of Marvel, or would that be before the Image guys left? The glory days continued.
No, it was after. It was after, because the X office seemed to be in a little bit of turmoil because they couldn't figure out who was going to be the ongoing teams. And while Lobdell does take over immediately when Pertasio leaves, the artist, it's kind of influx until they settle on Romita Jr. coming back.
Right.
And Objectiveless, they find Andy Kubert immediately, and Fabian starts writing. And X-Force, well, since Fabian was already writing over Liefeld's plots, they continue. Mark Pacello was doing a Liefeld style art for a few issues, and then Greg Capullo comes on. X-Factor, it was X-Factor at the time. Peter David was still writing, but Larry Stroman had already been and already left, I think. So I think it was Joe Quesada doing the art.
So I think we'd have to say the glory days ended when the Image guys left.
Yeah.
Not that there wasn't still some residual glory for a few years.
Yeah, because I always attribute it to, like, when I got there, it felt like the party kind of ended, but there's still great food, there's still good vibes, good music, and it's only a little while later when the police comes kicking down the door and beating everybody to get out. So that's the way that it was, like, basically coming in at the end of the great big party, but it's still things are still coming in. Pizza's still being
ordered. The party
ordered.
hasn't wound down.
No, not at all. The party has not wound down. So it was like, there's the main stars have left, but the party's still going on. And I think right after that, there was some still good times before before the bankruptcy. And then the bankruptcy years, it was interesting because there was that, that camaraderie of, well, we're all in this together.
Right.
Kind of a thing. I think that
we're the survivors.
Yes. Definitely, the survivors. And then, got to see things going back up again. So it was like, oh, maybe another party's going to start. And it kind of did, and it kind of didn't. So
the party master was a Scrooge was one of the problems.
yeah, completely. It's just
when Scrooge is your party master, you never really can quite get a party started.
Well,
As much as everybody wanted to try.
I think this could be something good to ask Ralph Macchio once, because since the ex-office lost a bunch of their artists, and they didn't exactly have there was that little bit of turmoil until they finally settled. The Avengers had been kind of irrelevant for the audience at the time. But then they do Operation Galactic Storm, so let's do a big crossover to get everybody talking about the Avengers. And I imagine that Ralph Macchio might have thought it was a good idea to do that, to see if they could catch some of the attention if people were leaving in case people were leaving the X-Men, because Jim Lee and Portasio and Liefeld weren't there anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd get a straight answer out of Ralph, but you could try. You could only try.
Because
I think he started attending cons recently.
Yes, he was at the New York Comic Con this year.
Because the Avengers group titles, they had some good quality teams in there. So the main title, Bob Harris and Steve Epting were doing the Avengers, and Mark Grunwald had the artist that was working with Mark Grunwald on Captain America was not that good. But let's see, who was the guy? I always forget his name.
Man, I don't remember like any of the artists in Captain America.
Oh yeah, Rick Levins.
Yeah, they were all middle of the road. I read all of that Grunwald Captain America and liked it.
And the West Coast Avengers had this guy called Dave Ross, and I've never managed to find anything interesting about his art, but the stories were good because they were written by. But Roy Thomas was writing some interesting stories.
Was Dave Ross the one who went on to work at CrossGen? And what was the name of that comic? The Way of the Rat? Was that Dave Ross or was that some other Ross? I can't remember.
Yeah, and Len Kaminsky and Paul Ryan were doing Iron Man, so that was good.
Let me put in Way of the Rat, CrossGen, another book Marvel can publish. Way of the Rat. Who did that? Jeff Johnson. Okay, completely different guy.
Yeah, Jeff Johnson was drawing Wonder Man at the time.
There we go.
I never quite figured
out. Chuck Dixon and Jeff Johnson. There we go.
I never quite figured out who thought that a Wonder Man solo book was a good idea.
I enjoyed Wonder Man. I was picking them up. Me, I was.
You were the only one, right?
He was the Wonder Man fan. There you found him.
I was the only one there buying the books. I like the artwork to that. I forget who did it, but
it was Jeff Johnson.
I think he just told
us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. $62 Lefty Blue says, but do you enjoy Wonder Bread?
Yes, because they used to have cards. DC would have superhero cards in the Wonder Bread.
Wonder Bread, I think, would have been illegal in Europe if they tried.
Almost likely would have.
Wonder Bread is best when you scrunch it up into a little ball and make it into a hard knot of bread. It's still soft, but a dense knot of bread.
Yes.
From what I understand about Wonder Bread, it could not be legally be sold as bread in Europe.
We got American cheese. I don't believe it actually can be considered cheese.
No, cheese. American cheese can. American pure processed cheese food, on the other hand.
Because I know
people always mix up.
Right, and then you got
American cheese is an actual cheese.
Right.
But there's so much imitation American cheese. that it's like people forget that American cheese is a real thing.
Right.
Your M&Ms have coloring chemicals, which are illegal here.
That's not actually true. A lot of them are sold just under different. I just saw a video on that. There are actually more chemicals, coloring chemicals, that are illegal in the U.S. that are in Europe than vice versa, and a lot of them that just go under different names. Our red dye number 55 is Europe's, I don't know, ancillary dye number 6. So it's like
they usually have to start with the letter E.
Yeah, I don't know what the naming convention is.
There's a E dash in the 3-figure number.
But sometimes it's like the same. You know, it's people say, "Oh, well, Europe doesn't have this red dye." It's like, well, no, they have it. They just call it something different.
No, we do have a red dye, and it is chemicals. It's not the same chemicals, but it's just it's not good for you either.
But if we're going to have a candy section, we may want to invite Jason Liebig.
Yeah, he can tell us all. Candy talk. Let's see. Another comic I got this week is Napalm Lullaby, issue number 8. Rick Remender and Bengal. This is the one that has completely changed concepts. Originally, this was the one where a baby, very much like Superman, in a rocket ship crash landed on Earth and was discovered by this, Mon Pa and Kent, except Mon Pa Kent were in a religious cult. Cut to 20 years later, and that religious cult has taken over the whole world. And this brother and sister, who turned out to be bastard childs of that Superman guy, were trying to free the world from this cult. That was the first story arc. The second story arc is that the sister bastard child of Superman succeeded too well, and her crazy psionic powers kind of took over, and she's remaking the world in her image now. And her brother down here is trying to stop her, who has some sort of empathy power. The superpowers are so vague in this book. It's like, whatever the plot calls for, they can do. So now this whole issue was like, he is like 7 levels down in his own. His sister is basically making a nice life for him. So he's got this nice life on some reality that isn't real. I guess it's Matrix-like, isn't it? And so a couple of people came to get him out. So they want him to go kill his sister so that she's not running the whole world. He's never going to kill his sister. So I don't know but this is one of those, I think, where Rick Remender is just like changing the whole concept with every story arc. So we'll see how him going up against his sister story arc worked, because his sister was his ally in the first story arc. So we'll see how this, but it's fun. It's a fun story that you never know where it's gonna go, and the art's nice. It's got some imagination in it. But I don't have a ton to say about it. It's a solid B.
Okay. So next issue that I happen to have is Eric Larson's Savage Dragon.
Okay. We got that one last week.
Chris Giarrusso backup story and back page story.
Got some comic strips in there. And don't confuse G-Man with Great Man like I did last week.
Yeah, no, G-Man and
Giarrusso did not appreciate that.
No, there is a difference between those two. I know that.
So do I. I just kind of forgot. Great Man is G-Man's older brother.
Yes. So nice, Kirby-ish.
And they're kind of based on Chris and his older brother, too.
Yeah.
A little behind the scenes for you.
So, I haven't gone through it yet. So I know it's going to be the usual Savage Dragon shenanigans.
Though does that cover remind you, or does that I don't know why I think that cover is an homage to something. And Eric Larson usually writes if it's an homage to something. And I tried to figure out what it was, and I could find nothing. But I'm like, I don't know why. That cover seemed so familiar to me.
It does, but there have been plenty of interior images, like
could be
Dark Side holding Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been something at one point.
The Avengers Annual in the Evolutionary War. You have the High Evolution holding up the world,
and then the people.
Yeah,
holding up the world, and the people were hanging. The Avengers were hanging on the world.
Mm-hmm. Could be something like that.
So it's something similar to that.
Usually, if he's doing an homage, he lets you know. That's why I found that so weird.
So it's like more of the sense of it's been done so many times. Maybe he didn't.
Yeah, maybe it's just a common enough image that it's not an homage. It's just something everybody like La Pietà.
Exactly. I have no idea what that means, but yes,
that's Mary holding Jesus in her arms.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, everyone.
Everyone's done that, so I think it might be something.
That's Aquaman and the Dolphin, because Mary is usually seated because
almost phase Fantastic Four #1 because it's close enough.
And what does La Pietà mean, Paulo?
What does what?
La Pietà, P-I-E. It's a name of famous painting.
Oh yeah, piety.
Piety? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's Mary holding Jesus.
It's been done since the Fantastic Four.
Oh, yeah. Another one.
So it's just turning him to the side, and then you have it, just about. So, this
could just be that. You're right.
So it could just
that Fantastic Four enough times.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely.
No, piety and pity. They come from the same etymology.
Piety and pity. And something I got that I haven't read yet that I picked up. First back issue magazine I've picked up in a long time.
Yeah.
I was just like, you know what? I could go for a Keith Giffen tribute issue. Why not? I never met Keith Giffen, but I'd like to know a little more about him. So Masters of Comic Art on the back. So I picked this up and I'll read it sometime. Issue Feb 157, 2020. $11 for this magazine. Magazines are so expensive these days.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while since I picked up a back issue also.
Me too. I've got a couple dozen old ones on my shelf when they were $6 an issue.
Yeah.
$11.
They were easier to get back then. I think I got those. I forget if those were monthly or not, but I picked the older ones. I picked up on a regular basis.
Yeah,
because it gave so much history.
It was probably the early 2000s I picked up, like from maybe 2000 to 2010. I'd pick them up all the time, but not in a while.
I would pick those up in the Jack Kirby collector.
Yeah,
it's kind of like my magazine rotation back then.
Yep.
Starlog, Comic Scene, when they used to do those were regulars.
Keith Giffen in the 2000s, ideas that inspired millions. Okay, can't wait to see what that is, because Legion of Superheroes, Justice League, Ambush Bug, of course. The last thing what's the last thing I read by him? There was something he drew in the New 52 that I read in OMAC. With Scott Koblish inking them, and I think it was Dan DiDio writing it. That was a solid series. I enjoyed that one.
I don't think I picked those up.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone did because it went out of business pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think OMAC was anyone's favorite series of the New 52 but me. And if I'm the one whose favorite series it is and it's mainstream, you're in trouble. In trouble.
And then trying out new things. This is because I got from the back orders. but I gotta check out why I'm missing 2 issues. But I picked up Absolute Batman #1.
Okay.
Because I wanted to give it a try. I heard so many good things about it. This I don't know which printing this is. I think it's second or third, if I remember correctly. And so I picked up issue 1 as from the back issues. I thought I ordered 2 and 3, but I guess I didn't. And then issue 4 is part of my pull list now.
Okay.
So it's just a big hulking Batman.
Yep.
I understand has a axe.
Bat signal turns into an axe.
Yeah, I think that's pretty neat. Completely crazy. But
that just,
that
just reminded me when I was talking to GPAP this morning. He was saying that he's been making some money lately selling cards, non-sports cards, especially Marvel cards.
Right.
And he said something about he thinks the sort of current comic market isn't hot for like flippers because it's been a reader's market for the last couple of years. And that got me thinking. I was like, about what were the hot comics of the last couple of years. And I think he was right in that, like, just those Absolute comics have been hot over the last 6 months or so, but it was all because people wanted to read them.
Right.
And what was the other one I thought of was Ultimate Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 went up in price because everybody went, but once the like second and third printings came out, they didn't, the first printings no one was that terribly interested in. And I was like, that got me. I was like, you know what? It might be a reader's market right now. People do the reason a comic gets hot is because people actually want to read it rather than a few years ago when the Joker's daughter came out. What's her name? Punchline. Remember when everybody was scrambling to get Punchline first appearance comic? It wasn't because they wanted to read it. No one cared about reading about Punchline's first appearance. Everybody was buying it because it was the hot first issue.
Right.
So I think I was like, he might be right. It might be a reader's market right now. The things that go hot only go hot briefly, and it's because people really want to read them, not because they want to flip them or
exactly.
think it's going to be worth $1 million.
That's why I was fine getting a second print of the Absolute because I want to read the story.
Right. You're not interested.
I want to hunt down and pay the outrageous prices.
Why bother?
Yeah, exactly. Because I have more than enough books that I can't get rid of now. I don't want to be flipped, flipping books. So again, although today was like the first time I went and searched, what is this particular book worth compared to that book? Because I was just thinking about the McFarlane Spider-Man run. There's only 14 issues of his run, so to speak, not necessarily the Amazing. When they gave him his own title, and it's like, how long did that actually run? Because I didn't really think about it. It was like one of those things, like they gave him his own title, and then he was gone. How long did that last? And it was 14 issues. And I don't even know if he drew all 14 issues.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if he ended the story or did it just drop, did he just up and leave or did he finish his stories?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they left abruptly, but I don't remember. I wasn't reading their story.
I don't. It was like one of those things that popped in my head and I was like, I need to look it up.
Got no memory of that.
Yep.
I just read another couple issues of the Paul Galassi Master of Kung Fu in the omnibus #2, which, by the way, if you remember, I got that omnibus because I think it was $35. Because for some reason eBay was flooded with a few cheap omnibuses, but they seem to have the flood seems to be over it because I was checking out the other Master of Kung Fu omnibuses and that one. And that one's up to $70, which is cheap for a $100, $125 omnibus, but it wasn't $30 like they were for a while. And I noticed all the other Master of Kung Fu omnibuses are even more expensive than that. But I'd forgotten how good that was. The Paul Galassi issues. And I also found the key to reading that is to skip the issues that aren't Paul Gulacy. Just thumb through them a little. Because I forget which one it was. It was right after the cat story. So he was fighting this guy who had an electric suit on, who knew Kung Fu, and Shang-Chi got his ass kicked because every time he would punch this guy, he'd get an electric shock. So he couldn't hope to win that fight. Shockwave or somebody. But I had forgotten how good those issues were in general. And it made me think about Paul Gulacy's art a little bit. Because Paul Gulacy has never been the best sort of technical drawer. He uses a lot of photo reference at times. His layouts are very imaginative and innovative. But sometimes his drawing gets clunky, but I still kind of always like it. And there's sort of an approachability to his art that there isn't to some. There's some guys who you see their art and you're, I could never do that. But Paul Gulacy, I'm like, you know what? With the right reference materials and I could maybe do a comic sort of like Paul. So he's got that. I was just thinking about that for some reason. The difference between Paul Gulacy, who always kind of had a distinctive style, and somebody like, Barry Windsor Smith, who you look at his art, especially, when he started doing posters and stuff, and he just blows you away with his drawing. Paul Gulacy, he never quite blows me away with his drawing, but he blows me away with his storytelling and his mood and his style. So it's a different sort of thing, but I was enjoying those issues a whole lot. You ever thought about Paul Gulacy's art, Paulo? I know you've read those Master of Kung Fu.
Yeah, I like those. The first issues were not very good mostly because of the inking, I think.
Yeah,
but,
he's also inking. If the inker wasn't getting his style, it took it down a notch.
Yeah,
the flaws in the drawing came out more.
But I don't dislike what came after, because Mike Zeck did a.
Oh, Mike Zeck was good, yeah, and Gene Day, of course, is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
Gene Day knew how to use Gulacy's techniques in his own way, which is good.
Like I think it was a Sal Buscema issue I skipped, and there was nothing wrong with it. And what they did was that issue was its own standalone issue and wasn't part of the Paul Gulacy story arc. So I think that was a good idea they did. But it was just, average Sal Buscema 1970s superhero story. Nothing. There's I always enjoyed his stories, but there's nothing spectacular about 70s Sal Buscema, especially 70s fill-in Sal Buscema. It's like, if I want to read 70s Sal Buscema, I want to read the best of run on Team Up he had, really good. His run on the Hulk, really good. Random issues of Master of Kung Fu, Oh, looks like Eric P. also got that back issue. Yeah, it was the Keith Giffen tribute issue that sold it to me. I was like, you know what? I'll go for it. Learn a little more about Keith. Have you ever dealt with Keith Giffen? You ever met him, Wilson?
I've never met him. I had artwork, healthy artwork from that Marvel book that he did, Lunatica or something like that. Lunatic.
Oh, Lunatic with a K?
Yeah. I think he did that book.
I vaguely remember it.
I think that's the only artwork that I've held of his. But I don't think I ever had a conversation with him at all.
Okay. Yeah, my favorite thing of his is, of course, everyone's favorite, his Great Darkness saga from the Legion of Superheroes. That was a lot of fun.
Right.
I remember first seeing him on the Defenders when he was doing sort of a Kirby thing. as a kid. And I liked that. I was like, oh, look, I was able to say, oh, look, he's doing a Kirby thing. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
The Zodiacs. I haven't looked at that in years. I'm going to check that out. Check that out. Let's see. What else do I have here? I think this is... we have got the 17th issue of Snot Girl. This is the story by Brian Lee O'Malley is the writer, and Leslie Hung is the artist. It's the one that's the story of a fashion blogger. And it's this weird slice of life drama that's hard to describe. It's unlike anything you'll read in comics. And in this issue, our Snot Girl, who is our lead, who her name comes from some condition she has that she takes medicine for, where her nose runs if she doesn't take her medicine. They haven't even touched on that I think the first 15 issues came out, and then there was like a 4-year break. I can't remember the last time they touched on her name, the reason for her name. Now it's just a story. I mean, she's barely even a fashion blogger in this. It's more of a drama between her and her. She's got a girlfriend now, and I think it's her girlfriend's brother, and they're not. It's hard to describe exactly what's going on except for drama between the characters, but I enjoy it. It's fun stuff. We get some sketches in the back. Always cool when they throw in some extras. They're like, we don't need house ads. Here are some extras. Some sudden violence in the last panel. Me when I'm Virgil. And some of these characters I find I'm not sure of their gender. Like this character right here. Got a belly shirt. I think it's a she, but I'm not sure. But I'm like, whatever. I'll roll with it. It's the fashion world. But good book if you want something different to read. What's the most different book you have in your pile, Wilson?
Different book in my pile.
What would win that award if you were to just look at that pile and say, this one stands out as different than the rest?
Considering everything in the pile that I picked up this week are mainstream books.
No Godzilla Monster Piece Theater this week.
No, not this week.
That would be your most different one from.
That would be, yeah, because
that one's a little.
The last few books that I have from the pile is 2 more sketch covers.
Oh, okay.
Deadpool and Wolverine #1.
Now, how is the paper on that black cover?
It's pretty smooth. There's no truth to it whatsoever.
I mean, can you draw? You would have to use like a silver marker on that. You couldn't even do an underdrawing with pencil, could you?
Probably not. I mean, you can. You would probably have to angle it in a certain way to see it well enough. And maybe I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. It was more to experiment. I do see some people drawing, as you mentioned, with silver. There's white. You know, if I use any of those acrylics markers that they've been advertising all over TikTok, maybe I could use one of those to put colors on it. But both of them feel, even though it's a thin Bristol, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But they both kind of feel the same. They almost feel like the same thickness. It's just I would say this is a little more slicker.
Yeah. Because it's got all that black ink on it. So
Yeah, pretty much. The only other one I could say that maybe is the style wise that's used in Transformers, because it has that very sketchy look to the artwork.
Once again, I saw on social media today, someone said, I never thought my favorite indie book would be the Transformers.
Yeah. It has that indie look to it. For something that I'm so used to drawing very mechanical myself. On model for, Hasbro's themselves. These comic books are just very dirty in the sense of just on the paper. You got all the little bits of nooks and crannies and all those types of things where there isn't a very much an indie look to them.
They're not gleaming, shiny robots, all drawn on model.
Not at all. There are, there are motion blurs put into the artwork, just so many things that gives it movement. When was the last time you actually saw the sound effect drawn in the background of it?
I got to see this.
You could do it with a computer.
Oh yeah, look at that.
But I think that's drawn right in the artwork.
Yeah.
And then a color hold add to it. So, but even with the arm inked, the fist inked the way it is, it gives it that movement, that almost that blur look to it. And he's stretching the mouth. And stuff like that. So it gives it a lot of energy to it.
Yeah.
So I would say this is probably from this particular pile is the one where the artwork is sketchy, scratchy.
Interesting.
And then the only other oddity that I picked up is this Transformers. Not Transformers. I'm sorry. Power Rangers Prime issue number 1.
Ah, shiny.
It's a very shiny cover.
Look at that.
And the back cover is the same image, but it's just all blue. It's fascinating to look at, and it's like design-wise, it is pretty cool. And I usually don't like these shiny covers because, again, if crack it open, it's going to probably bend somewhere.
That's one of the ones. I have a bunch of these are the covers I bought over the last few years that I have just to show my students, in my pre-press class, to show them different. Where are they? And it's getting to be quite the pile. Oh, this is the random issue of Manifest Destiny with a big ink smear in it. I bought another, because like in the middle of the story, there's a production error, just like a big ink smear down it. So I can show them production errors. This one too. This one I kept just because it's like so oversaturated with ink. I kept an oversaturated example to show them. Like I grabbed this one just to show them this shiny. I really like this shiny paper. And House of Slaughter number 1. Of course, I forgot the name of these sports flick ones that show you the 2 different covers. Lenticular. There we go. A lenticular one. Another smaller lenticular one. Oh, here's a lenticular one from when DC had lenticular month. I got a couple. And this one, I think, is this lenticular or I think this one, I don't want to take it out of the back, has a die cut in it.
Oh, okay.
Where I think that page is die cut or something. Memory, sir. Oh, here's one of my favorite lenticulars because I just love that original cover with Moon Knight.
Right.
This is a black. DC did a black light ink month. So I got one. I have to get a black light bulb to see what that looks like. Oh, and here's another Something's Killing the Children one with this beautiful metallic silver paper. Really nice. I just liked that paper a lot. And what is this one? Oh, I think this is more. This is a DC more metallic paper one. There's like all sorts of different metallics, and I don't think it's die cut. No, it's just done on once again. Some of it's on metallic paper. So this is my little section of special paper stuff to show my students. Which it's a good section to have. You can throw all yours in that section.
Yeah, it's actually a really good one because I do get I talk to a lot of publishers, and there are certain ones there's something called foil etched.
Yes.
There's stuff like that, and then you got the regular foils, and they're always trying all different types of things, whether it works or not.
Yep. I actually have a big pile of stuff that I've showed my students too. From you, of course, remember all the different types of covers they had in the early '90s, all the different die cuts and da-da-da. I didn't keep any of them. It's like I had none of them. Then it was like in 2003, when Marvel moved to 40th Street, some editor must have been getting rid of a bunch of their old comics in their office, because you know how Ike didn't like to see comics around the office, and he'd steal them and sell them.
Yeah.
So one day I was walking past a spot where people were getting rid of stuff, and there was like 25 specialty covers there. And I looked at it and went, 10 years have gone by now since and I was like, you know what? I should take some of these home just to have some samples of them, because I have no samples of all those early 90s specialty covers. So I ended up with a pile of them that day that I still have tucked away in a closet.
Nice.
All done completely differently than the way we do it now, because they were all done by hand, with John Romita having to draw how the embossing goes.
Yep.
And Vince Evans having to write up all of the different stuff that was going on.
Mm-hmm. We had to do that for, I even still have it hanging up, is the Maximum Clonage #1 Alpha, where it has multiple Spider-Mans in the background. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting with John Romita Sr., and he brought them down to Gary's office. It's like, what can we do to make it look a certain way? And so we were Xeroxing them onto clear paper and then piling them up together. And it's like, one of the ways that could be done is that each one, the further it goes back away from the main cover, is 10% lighter. And that one behind that one is 10% lighter. So we basically just had mocked up a cover full of just a generic Spider-Man swinging on acetate, and just piling them up and then marking each one is going to be 10% lighter than this one. So so it was a 2-page spread, or the foilness to it went onto 2 pages. But the back page was just an ad. It was an ad for the Spider-Man Premier Edition cards. This is 1995. But the front is the Maximum Clonage, where, again, each Spider-Man, almost the same size. It may have shrunk down. Each one may have shrunk down just 1%, just to make it look a little smaller and back. And I think each time we did that, it was just a lighter one. And I don't know if they just sent that pile that we put together out, but it was one of those things like, all right, here we go. That's the cover. So I have
they have to get it right at the printer. They have to get it right at the printer.
Yep. Let them figure it out at that point. And this was back when they were like, the printers were trying anything out. They were loving all those covers, that they were.
Made them extra money.
Completely. The one thing I wish I still had from Marvel I didn't get was they did because ForceWorks had a fancy cover where it opened up into a poster. Well, there was one company that showed up and said, we could do that, but in a chrome, we could do them at any sizes. And Gary's like, all right, make one like this size. So he stuck his arm out. So they made 5 of these chrome covers that they sent to Marvel. And it was more like, this is great, but I don't know if they ever did anything with them.
Right.
So Gary had a cover. I ended up having one. I don't know if one ever went to the artist. I don't think he ever got a copy. So there was only 5 of these ever made. And I had mine hanging up at Marvel. But when I left, it was like, I can't carry this damn thing. You know, that ended up staying in my office at Marvel. So that was one of those things. It's like, there's like 3 pieces of stuff that it was like, oh, I would have loved to have had that just because of the sheer, one was the sheer size of it, the novelty of it, of that thing, because it was like, it was interesting. You know, it was a wild time.
Force Works #1. I think that was the one that was pop-up.
Yes. It was not only pop-up, it popped up and then opened. So it basically it had like this section on the cover that was like a square, but you could take it apart and open it. It's like one of those maps where you had to open up a certain way and it had to be folded back a certain way. But
I might have a copy of that here, but it's battered.
Yeah, so that was, I think, Tom Tenney cover, if I remember correctly.
Another one I always liked that I have in my Superman section, they did a color forms color, only not with color forms. Their own vinyl clings.
Yeah, World's Finest. I think that was one of the crossovers with Milestone. I think they did that during that time. I know I have a Superman one, but I think
I have a Superman one too.
The Milestone ones had that as well.
Do you know what those are, Paulo? The color forms or vinyl clings?
No.
It's
So there was a company named Color Forms.
Yeah.
And they would sell these boxes. They would look like a game box. And what it would
board
be
game.
it would be the same size as a board game. And you would get a city scene. And it would be drawn like a regular comic book would be. And you would get these, they were vinyl, right? Peelable vinyls?
Yeah, they were vinyl because they were reusable.
Right. So they were these reusable, almost stickers, and they would stick on this kind of paper. And you could make a comic book scene because a lot of them were made for superhero stuff. They were different.
You get a Spider-Man set, and you'd open the box. The box would kind of open like a stage, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Because
so you had like a long scene, basically.
Right.
And then you would stick these characters on there.
Yeah, the color forms or vinyl clings were like little stickers of Spider-Man, and you can move them around because there was the only thing that kept them on was like friction, because the vinyl stuck. It's like something that sticks, like a vinyl cling sticks to your window. Mm-hmm. They did a comic book cover like that, where it was Superman. I think it was like the Daily Planet, right?
Yes, it was definitely the Daily Planet, and it
was double-sided, so front cover and back cover, so you could open it up, and it was like Daily Planet with like the city in the background, and they sent you this. Also, it came with a page of vinyl clings. Color forms, the trade name. So you would poke out a little Superman, and you could put him flying around, puts a villain, and you can move them all around because they're like I said, they're not. They look like stickers, but they're not. They're just a piece of flat vinyl that sticks to whatever this paper is a little bit with friction. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, so there was a whole series of them, different superheroes, depending on the set that you got. Sometimes only the main superhero would be fully in color, and all the other characters would just be a solid color. So if they happen to print green, they print green. Also depending on the levels, because they had some for kids, and they would just be shapes. And I think that's how it started, and then they moved into superheroes. And then the more advanced ones, I want to say they came with parts. So you could have like a Spider-Man body, and then you had his arm that you could move around. Not basically attached to the body. You could put it on top of the body, and then you could have like kind of posing abilities and stuff like that. I'm almost sure I know where the Superman one is. So hopefully by next week's show, I'll have it. If I find it during the week, I might you'll see TikTok videos of it. but I'm almost sure I know where that Superman one.
Yeah, I think mine's in with my Superman in the other room, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll check later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of my favorite. That was probably my favorite gimmick cover.
Yeah,
was the vinyl clings / color forms one. Matter of fact, I think I may have two of them. One I never opened, and one I did.
I may have done
got them both at Marvel.
I very well may have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Where I had one that I kept closed and one that I opened up to play around.
Just because it was my favorite.
And I think Lobo was in that group. I know it's definitely Superman, but I think Lobo was in that. Okay. And I want to say that was also during the time that they had that Milestone crossover, and they might have made one of those covers as well. You know, because DC's not going to do it just once. They're going to have to try to do it with at least a couple of covers.
Let's see, my last comic for the week is What's the Furthest Place from Here? Number 21. Boss and Rosenberg with Atzme Elhau. Whoops, there it is. And this is the one that's about, it takes place in some future where there are no grown-ups, and the kids all lived in this city where they all sort of had these identities that were based around what store, like our main heroes, their identities were based around the fact that they lived in an old record store. Then they got the people whose identities are based around the fact that they live on an old police station, fire station, whatever. And then at the very beginning, our gang of record store people got into a beef with some of the other people and eventually got their record store burnt down. And they've been wandering around ever since. And they trying to find a place to live. And eventually they wandered to this new town after going through these scary mountains. And they found people living in another record store. So they thought they'd team up with them, but then it didn't. So it's just kind of this ongoing story about them wandering around, trying to figure out what to do. And lots of crazy, violent people. It's like it's a post-apocalyptic, but I like the art. And like I said, the story has meandered all over the place, but I'm okay with that. Sometimes I wonder how these people who don't have much food get to be giants at times. But good. This has been a good series run to issue 21.
Have they run to anyone who were in a comic book store?
Not a comic book store, but they do have cartoon characters.
Oh, okay.
Like this one gang was all based on this cartoon pig face. But what's funny is in this issue, the guy who was wearing the cartoon pig face, the last of his little clan, just ran into the people in this town who wear like actual real like boar faces, and they thought he was making fun of them and didn't take too kindly to it.
Right.
No one who lived in a comic shop, no.
Okay.
That I can think of. But there are cartoon comic references in it throughout. But good stuff in general. That's been it's been an enjoyable series.
Oh, okay. The last book I have is from my pile is Amazing Spider-Man issue number 65.
Ah.
And I think this is running a series that they've been calling the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man. But I have no idea what's going on other than Spider-Man has another new costume. So of course there's going to be a new toy for that. So
of course, need that.
Definitely. Yeah. Speaking of the costume.
There it is.
A silver costume with a long scarf. I think the scarf is what's in now for heroes, I'm guessing. And looks like he has magic, and looks like he's facing off with the Hobgoblin, the Green Goblin, which I think now is a Red Goblin. I don't know. I haven't read the story. I have no idea where they are with it right now. But I think this is supposed to be like ending somebody's run and then getting ready to start a whole new run. So,
who's the creative team?
This particular book has Kelly. That's the cover. Let me open it up. All right. So Joe Kelly is writing it.
Okay.
Fu is the artist.
Okay.
It looks like he's the penciler and inker. And then Joe Karamanja. How do you pronounce Joe's last name?
Caramagna, right?
Caramagna.
Caramagna. Yeah, so he's the letterer. So I guess Joe, yeah, because I remember Joe Kelly having his name being like, new Spider-Man writer, but I thought he was going to take over the book after the Eighth Death of Spider-Man storyline. What I understand, a lot of people did not like the last season, I guess we could call it, of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So people have been waiting for this new run to start.
And Joe Kelly's been around for a long while, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, knew Joe way back when in
the 90s, right?
Yeah, we both worked on. I did some coloring over his Deadpool issues.
Okay,
and that
I
was
ever met him.
Yeah, very nice guy.
Yeah,
very nice guy, down to earth. So he was always fun to hang out with at cons and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then the last bit of stuff are the catalogs, the free catalogs.
Oh, that's right. So, but I've got an IDW catalog around here somewhere. Where'd that go?
And then this might be the one that I had gotten last week, but this is the Marvel one with the Godzilla on the cover.
Okay, yeah.
Dr. Doom saying.
Remember you mentioned that. Somewhere right around here was an IDW catalog I was looking at. I have no idea what happened to it. Oh, well. I won't look through it. I don't think there was anything terribly exciting in it anyway, except for
I think the last IDW one that I went through only had like one Godzilla title on it. It's kind of disappointing because it was like, we were just doing a whole bunch of Godzilla stuff, and then
they're the Godzilla company.
Yeah, basically. But now it's Godzilla's 70th anniversary, so he's appearing on a whole bunch of Marvel covers. So right. I don't know if there's any other projects going on at IDW for the 70th anniversary.
I didn't put it anywhere in here. I don't know. Oh, yeah. The other thing I was reminded of today that I was looking at on eBay was I had forgotten that I think in 2023 came out a Omega the Unknown Marvel Masterworks. And I was like, oh, I already have my original issues plus a mint condition set. I've got it in trade paperback. I'm like, do I read? Somehow I feel compelled to get the Masterworks too. Because that is probably I would say that's my favorite series from my childhood.
Right.
Is Omega the Unknown. And there's only one. And it still reads well today. That's one I can still read.
Is
but
that
maybe
just was it just because I think there was two titles of Omega the Unknown.
No, it was just that there was only one, and then in the early 2000s they did a reinterpretation of it.
All right, so is this reprinting both or just
no? This is just the originals, I think. Somewhere
okay.
I have to find it because I don't know where it went. All of my comics are in order, but all of my books and collected editions are not.
Oh, okay.
So somewhere in here I have that reimagining by indie creators of Omega the Unknown from the aughts, I think it was.
Right.
I just don't know where it is. It could be right behind me. things just kind of blend. And when it's only one book, it just blends in with the rest.
Yeah, a lot of my graphic novels are the graphic albums, which are like very thin. They're usually one shots. And
well, I have like all the stuff like this. I have in one space at least.
Okay.
This is it's more of a collected edition. It's thicker than this, and it's hardcover. So, but still, it'll blend. Like if I need to find any of my like graphic novel size ones, at least I know the section to go to. Because I keep them all in the same section. To find one volume hardcover or trade paperback, I don't know where to go. It's somewhere.
Right.
Like right back there are Lock and Key and Cerebus. They're easy to find. There's 10 volumes of them. They can't hide. But other ones can hide. I think it's back there, though. I'm not sure. Look there. I see Craven the Final Hunt or whatever the name of that is. That's back there. I've got the. Wonder when Marvel stopped doing those. The Marvel Premiere Edition hardcovers. I think they did them in like 2005 to 2010, where the first printing of whatever collected edition was in a Marvel Premiere Edition hardcover with only so many, and they were numbered. I think they stopped doing that though.
Yeah, that wasn't the Marvel Selects, was it?
No, it was for new stuff.
Okay.
Sometimes it was old stuff too, but it was a lot of times new stuff. Where the latest, it was around the same time as Marvel Brand New Day with Spider-Man.
Okay.
So the first time they would do a collection of Brand New Day, though I think it may have only been the dust cover. They'd like have a limited edition, which was the Marvel Premiere Edition, had a different dust cover than I guess the unlimited edition.
Right.
Now I got to see, is one of those Marvel Premiere Edition? Oh, there. That's a Marvel Premiere Classic. Let's see what this one is. This is Moonlight. Countdown to Dark. Marvel Premiere Classics. And I think somewhere on here. Oh, here it is. Experience the seminal stories of world's favorite superheroes. Marvel Comics is proud to present Premiere Classic Library in this special limited printing collector's edition. This printing is limited to 892 copies. So I guess, like I said, there's only 800, but I think they also put out a regular edition.
Right.
What was this? $25. Not too bad. I think the price has gone up. So they put out a lot of stuff in this like numbered copy, or not numbered, but only a limited number of copies thing. And I think my Craven's Last Hunt is that too. What year do we have? 2010. So that they might. I think they stopped doing these, but I bought a couple of them. Premiere Classic or Premiere Edition. Oh, I think it's time for us to wrap up and let Paulo get to bed.
All right.
Get some. Come on, confetti.
Balloons.
There we go.
Confetti.
Some confetti, some balloons. And we thank Johnny Green for stopping by, saying hello. See if we can get Joe Rosas in here to talk coloring. I didn't see him. I haven't heard from him since I sent him a link last week.
Right.
I think I scared him off.
You might have scared him off.
That happens sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Or is wait, I have to do this every week now?
Just show off once. That's fine.
You're a guest star. We'll try to hit up other bullpenners. See if they want to come on.
Yeah, see who wants to say hello. Okay, so you guys all have a good week out there. And we will catch you next time.
See ya.
Take care.